Saturday, 2 o'clock, and yes, it is time for the Young Adult Bible Study. We have been in this year a great discussion. I'm glad that I've been able to hear back from some of you about the book that we have been looking at in 2021, and that is Closing the Racial Wealth Gap by Eugene Mitchell. You see, I'm holding it up here for you guys. This is an awesome book. So far, we've covered a variety of things, looking at some of the issues that we struggle with in specifically the black community. But don't think of this book as just something that is good for helping African Americans or people of color to understand something about finances and also to understand something. Of course, Eugene Mitchell is also a proponent of health insurance but life insurance. He's a big proponent of life insurance, and so we're going to start getting a little bit more into the life insurance aspect of what Eugene Mitchell is suggesting for the black community and for people of colors to actually to close this actual wealth gap that exists in the races here in America. But we do hope that you have enjoyed this fruitful discussion and want to hear more questions from you. Shoot me a message on Facebook, on Twitter, and also on Instagram. These are the three places. Oh, also, I'm sorry, also on YouTube. Sorry, you YouTube guys that are watching this podcast and also watching this stream. Uh, you can reach out to us on the YouTube channel as well. Send us a message or even write a comment on the post. And we are very diligent about going back and checking past streams and responding to the questions or the comments that have been placed upon them. So feel free to do that. For those of you who will be on Twitter, you can also hashtag First Met Church or hashtag My First Met, and that also alerts us, and we will respond to you that way as well. If you're on Instagram, the young adults, you can hashtag First Met Rooted, First Met Plugged. Both of those two will reach us as well. We check those hashtags so that we can see what's going on in the community of First Metropolitan Church. And also, after our streams, we check those as well to go back and look to see if there were any questions that were given so that we can answer those things. Now, we won't belabor much longer. Of course, Eugene Mitchell has given us a great book, and that's what we'll be looking at least for the next 2 weeks. And so far, we've already looked at the different opportunities and possibilities that are there. How do we close the real wealth gap? Of course, knowing yourself, knowing your worth, insuring yourself to ensure the future. All of these things we've already looked at, talking about lots of different things as far as in education, why that's important. Last week we talked about um, the challenge that we face closing. The challenge we face closing the wealth gap. When you look at the amount of people that we have in our community that have some type of incarceration, then we also looked at the amount of single parent households we have in our community, and we also talked, of course, last week about health and how that affects our ability to close the wealth gap, and that kind of continues into today's discussion as Eugene starts to look closer at why we should be buying insurance. And of course, the way he's looking at insurance, of course, it is one of the, when he looks at his stats, and I'm not going through his stats, it is one of the top ways that wealth is created. So you have passing on a home or passing on a business, but you also have this passing on wealth through insurance. And so, as he puts it, there are lots of people that invest in the stock market. These are great places where you can invest money. You have your 401ks that invest and where your funds are matched. And so you can do these things, and these things help you to amass wealth. But there's only one that has the type of return. He also talks about the rate of return versus investing in the stock market and how the stock market yo-yos up and down and how you're looking at your return, and how it can sometimes be a little inconsistent but still dependable. But with health insurance, I'm sorry, I said health insurance, but with life insurance, this is a stable and a solid thing. So you're not waiting on some type of variable. You're not riding some market up and down. You're paying your premium, and upon paying your premium, you are guaranteed at the fulfillment of this contract or obligation to receive a certain amount of money. Well, not you specifically, but your loved ones. And then that is used by your loved ones to position themselves for the future and to secure their present. And so he's saying, look, there aren't a lot of places where you can get this type of return on your money. So it is a good investment for us. And so in this chapter, he starts to get into why more of us don't invest or see life insurance as a solid investment. And so he tries to answer some of those questions. And I want to start those discussions with you as well as we continue to look a little bit further into how we can close this racial wealth gap. So he lists for us three key stumbling blocks to us creating wealth. One is information that is omitted. Sometimes information is omitted. Then he talks about the action that is committed. And then the last one he talks about is the enemy within. The enemy within. And so we'll try to, very, very short and brief, to talk about those three things. And I'll read you a couple of excerpts from the chapter that I've outlined and try to give you a brief discussion and pose some questions to you. And I want to hear back some feedback from you. So if you have some insight or some questions, I want you to be thinking about those things and send them to me in an email. My email is pastorjohnny@firstmet.org. And then on all of the social medias, you can also hashtag PastorJDO3. And I check those personally myself in addition to assisting at the church, checking the church's hashtags, and also helping to respond on all of our social medias as a part of the social media team. Amen. So there are some things that he talks about. So the first one is information that is omitted. So basically, in this chapter, he's looking at how insurance is often. He looks at this throughout the entire presentation of what we're going to talk about today, but really how insurance is normally presented to us as African Americans. And so one of the things he talks about is how the image that has been created for us of what health insurance is good for is it's good for burying Big Mama, right? So that's the image that he's saying. Look, when you look at the commercials, when the agent comes to your home, when you get that flyer or the mailer in the mail, and it is designed to go at the black community. What they're saying is, look, Big Mama wants to go out in style. You know she wants to go out in style. Or if you're Big Mama, you're like, look, these fools ain't got no money. They gonna send me out of some raggedy casket. So I wanna buy this life insurance policy to make sure that when I go out with a bang. And so you get an insurance policy to ensure that you go out in style, or that you can bury Big Mama in a stylish casket and have all of the trimmings so she can look a doll while she's going on into the grave. And he's saying, you know what? Hooray for what we want to do for our elders. Yes, they deserve to go out with a bang. Yes, they deserve to go out in style. But if the only thing we can do is afford to bury Big Mama, and if the only thing you want to do, if you're Big Mama, is have a good burial, and you don't care what happens to your family once you're in that grave, and I can't say the words I would like to say, but shame on you. And shame on us for not thinking beyond the grave. But what Eugene wants us to understand is that some of that is a thought that has been given to us, as though the only thing that matters is this bang or this great funeral where everyone gets to come and to celebrate you. And then once you're gone, your income and your hard work It goes with you, and the people that are left are suffering and have to fend for themselves, especially if you're a key or person in the family that helps the family navigate some of the financial things that they have. So he wants us to be thinking a little bit past that, but part of that is information omitted. What he says is when the insurance agent comes to us, a lot of the times they don't give us the full facts and the full description of what's at stake and what we can actually do. They don't create that vision. So, like when they're talking to us about the stock market, they create a vision for us of how our money can multiply, how our money can work beyond what we could do with it our own self, how we can invest in other companies and we can help grow that company. And also, as that company grows, we can help grow ourselves. They create this image of you building something and creating something. But when we get presented with life insurance, this idea of building, this idea of sustaining, this idea of being fruitful, this idea of multiplying, this idea of advancing and pushing and strengthening and fortifying is often not given to us. So that when we look at life insurance, the only thing we can think about is the loss of life and not the extension or expanding or the building or the fortifying of the lives that are still here. So what Eugene is saying is, look, part of what we need to do is we need to change our thinking and our understanding about why we should and how we can use life insurance. So not just to bury our loved ones or not just to make sure that we go out in style and looking good. We want to make sure that the people we leave behind are able to not just sustain themselves, but are positioned in a way that they can advance themselves. So he's saying, look, we need to change our thinking. So he says, look, it's some of it's our fault, but some of it is not our fault. Again, I'll repeat that because of the way we have been presented with life insurance. So let me read this paragraph for you. This is on page 38, and he says, look, because of this, we see ongoing, non-stop begging to bury in our communities, relying on the latest crowdfunding platforms like GoFundMe, where strangers are asked to make online contributions to a family's funeral cost. This has simply it's simply an advanced mechanism for us to gather emergency funding. However, the fundamental cause is the same: poor planning for anticipated and unexpected expenses. And so, what he's talking about is, look, really, part of why a lot of us think, I can't afford this, I can't do this. What if I get the policy and then after 2 years, I can't afford to pay the premium anymore, more, and I cannot get back the money that I have put into this policy over the last 2 years. So I'll just keep my money in my pocket. But what Eugene is saying is, look, that is poor planning. And if you plan properly, if you save properly, if you manage and steward your money properly, you can afford to make this investment, right? You can afford to make this investment. Just like you sacrifice for anything else, just like you would save for anything else, just like you would discipline yourself and portion off a piece to take that vacation or to buy that car or to buy the new phone or to buy those new shoes, those new J's that are coming out. He's saying, look, you can do this, but it takes some planning and it takes some preparation, right? And so he's saying, look, the same type of mentality that goes into a family being in the position to have to crowdfund, to bury their loved one is the same type of poor planning that puts us in a position not to be able to afford the life insurance that we need to be able to sustain our families long after we have gone on. So I want to ask you today, go ahead and rate yourself. And let's just be honest. Where would you put yourself on a planning? Have you planned well? And I'm not just talking about planning for death, but I'm talking about, have you planned in general? Do you have a vision for your family? Do you have a vision for your finances? Do you have a plan for your finances? Now, I want to ask you, not just do you have a plan for your finances, but are you executing the game plan? Now, come on now, let's be honest. I've done this myself where I've put together a really, really solid plan. I sit down, I'm looking at the numbers, I see what's coming in, I see what's got to go out. I got this goal, I got this vision of what I want to do, and then I got this plan, and I'm like, yes, we're going to put this plan into action, and then all of a sudden, opportunity comes. All of a sudden, the deal of a lifetime comes. All of a sudden, somebody comes up with a great idea. All of a sudden, somebody's feeling sad or somebody's feeling, unappreciated, and they need to spend some money to feel a certain way or to purchase something to validate themselves or to reward themselves for the hard work and the excellence. And then something like that happens inside of your plan, and you start feeling like that. Man, I work all hard and I don't reward myself. Everybody else is going on these trips. Everybody else is buying these new clothes. Everybody else is getting the latest phone. Everyone else is buying new cars, and I need to do the same thing. And then all of a sudden, the plan that you wrote down, the plan that you're supposed to execute to build this wealth, to be successful, to stabilize your family, to advance your family as you men, come on, brothers, you men out there, to cover your family, to protect your family. All of a sudden, the deal of a lifetime comes through. And all of that vision, the write the vision, make it plain, all of that hard work you did, all of that strategy that you put in goes out the window with one phone call. So it's not just enough to make a plan, but you have to execute a plan. And what Eugene is saying is, look, if we would just make a plan, if we would just say, you know what, this life insurance is a priority. This life insurance, I may not be able to buy stocks. I may not even know how to buy a stock. I may not have any clue on how to do this, but I do know how to go down to that insurance company. I do know how to hop online and go to the website and get with a reputable company and see what policies they have. And I know how to fill out the registration, and I know how to meet with that person. I know how to do those things. Let me do those things, and then let me just see how much it costs. And then after that, I see how much it costs. Let me then put together a solid plan. Let me sit down and let me make sure that I can make this premium every month because it is worth it. It is viable to my family. Some of you need to be thinking about this. Some of you don't have a savings. Some of you haven't invested in stocks. Some of you don't have a 401k. Now you're 35. Now you're 40. You know that retirement is right around the corner. And you know for a fact that when you retire, your home is not going to be paid off. Your student loans are not going to be paid off. The business loan that you have taken out won't be paid off. You know for a fact that those things are not going to be covered by the money that you're going to make between here and then. And if you know that for a fact, you need to understand that not just because something happened to you before that time arrives, but something will happen to you possibly, well, something eventually is going to happen to you from a life standpoint after that. And your family will have to manage the things that you have made yourself and them responsible for. So the responsible thing to do is to make sure that you can continue to provide, to protect, to cover long after you're gone. And so he wants us to say that, look, it's a planning thing. So don't say that you can't. Say that I can and I will find a way to do this, right? So let's not have poor planning. And he says the word is anticipation. And I love the fact that he used that word in this because sometimes we wait for things to happen. He says, no, in this life, you got to anticipate some things. You got to be honest with yourself. You got to be able to look at your position. You got to be able to look not just at tomorrow, but you got to see 15 years down the line, 20 years down the line. And you need to know what's at stake in your family. And then you've got to anticipate something happening. You got to feel and just be in tune with how things are flowing. You got to be able to look at this economy. You got to be able to look at your ability to save. Am I going to be able to save this much? Am I going to be able to accelerate these payments and pay this house off in 15 years or 10 years? Can I refinance this house? If I cannot refinance this house, How can I position my family to be able to pay off this house in case something happens to me? What can I do? I don't have enough savings to send my child to college. Maybe I can buy this policy and then borrow against it and help to ensure that my child has the education that they need. I don't know. Be creative with it. But what he's saying, you got to anticipate some things. And you got to be full well knowledgeable of how these things work so that you can use them to your favor to be able to support your family the way your family needs to be supported so everybody can thrive, right? And so he says, look, gone should be the day of us. He talks about holding car washes, fish fries. Come on now, selling customized T-shirts. Come on, at the funeral, trying to pay for the funeral, or trying to send our kid off to college and trying to make these chicken baskets and stuff like that. And he's saying, look, if that's what you do as a business, that's fine. Make the money, sell the chicken, sell the French fries, but let's not make it the sole answer to our lack of planning. Let's not make it the sole response to our inability to be disciplined with our money and to be disciplined and strategic with our wealth. He's saying, look, let's not make that the answer. We can do that and we can profit at it, but don't let it be the thing that has to be the automatic response to your lack of diligence with your finances. He's saying, look, step up to the plate and do what is right with your money. Amen. All right. So he fast forwards, and then the second thing is he talks about is action committed, and this is where he gets a little bit more into that marketing piece, and he's talking about how the image that is set for us is that we are supposed to be preparing to die, and preparing to die for the African American in the marketing of these insurance companies stops at the grave. That's it. And so because of that, we don't have the right type of image or thought to how we should be doing things and how we should be preparing. And some of us, he talks about the chicken before the egg, is whether it's us coming in and thinking about the resources that are needed, or us understanding that the resources are needed for us to get the resources at the end. Like how do I need it? How do I prosper my family? How do I sustain my family? And then what type of insurance should I buy? And so what most are saying is like, look, just get some insurance. And this is where Eugene poses an argument that I could not, of course, hold serve on, because I'm not an expert on insurance like this guy is, or like some of you might be. But he says, look, for the most part, when they do try to go for us with insurance, what they say is, look, just do some term life, right? And he says, look, the term life is the cheapest route that you can go when you have it. So you have the term versus the whole. And so he says when they do get us to buy insurance, what they normally sell us on is the term life. And so the term life is very attractive because you're saying, you know what, I don't have those $75 a month or the $100 a month to put towards this whole life policy. So what I'll do is I'll take this term life policy because it's $35 or it's $45 a month. And so I'll take that policy and I'll be able to do that. And in case some emergency happens, then my parent and my family will benefit from the cash value of this policy that has been amassed during my time contributing to it. And he says, look, that is a decent strategy, but he's saying that he thinks that we should actually just go ahead, plan, and be disciplined and go out for the whole life policy. One of the things that he talks about as a whole life is that it is a whole life policy and it does not have to be renewed. And one of the things that he wants us to be thinking about is the ongoing health concerns that we have in our community. First of all, you could be the picture perfect, the pillar of health right now at 25, and you could get this policy. But if you get this term policy, and then the term policy is for, let's say, 20 years, right? So then at the end of 20 years, now at the end of 20 years, now you're 45 years of age. And so at 45 years of age, some of us have incurred high blood pressure. Some of us may have incurred now and have diabetes, or some of us may have some issues with our cholesterol. Or what about your weight? Maybe now you're not exactly 125, 135 pounds anymore. Now You're more like 225, maybe like 240, 250 now. And so he's saying at the end of that policy, now you have to re up with that policy. And now, because of these laws, they can look at you and they can say, hey, look, now we're going to reevaluate you, and we may give you this same policy again and re-up you for another 20 years with this policy. But because of the changes in your health, now this same policy is going to now cost you $55 as opposed to the $35. And for some of us, that would be great. Like, look, cool, it's just another $20. I make a lot more money now, and I'm in good shape. But he's saying, look, if you push for the whole, you could get that whole life when you're in the pillar of, and you're in the best health position that you can be at 20 and 25. You get that whole life policy, which lasts your entire lifetime, and it doesn't matter what happens to your health along the way because you don't have to re-up the policy. So you may start off paying that 55 or $60 at 20, but that's $60 for the entire lifespan of your earning. And as your earning potential goes up, that policy will be easier and easier to make and to sustain because your earning potential is going up, right? So he's saying, look, it's good to go for the policy if that's all you can do. But if you can, go ahead and shoot while your health is in the greatest position that it's in so that you can go ahead and nail down that $55 policy now. And the way we have to think of it is this. Right now, this policy is going to cost me $55. But if I wait to get this policy in 10 years or 15 years, the entry point for that policy will be $75 or $100. Now, it'll still be $100 for the duration of your life, which is fine. But what he's saying is that you could have started a lot earlier and you could have gotten it at a cheaper rate. So he said you might as well go ahead and get it as early as you can and lock in for that cheaper rate, and then just be diligent and ride it out so you don't have to worry about your health concerns being an issue in you getting or maintaining this policy once it turns up, right? So he's suggesting that we go out for the whole life policy, and that might be something that benefits us more in the long run. So he says, look, that type of insurance traditionally less expensive. He's talking about the term, since it only provides coverage for a defined term, as opposed to the whole life insurance, which is more expensive but provides coverage for the entire duration of your lifetime. So he really wants us to be thinking about that. Yes, you do have this smaller term, and in some cases, it really might be the best thing for you, but you do have to understand that if you can do this, then you have something over the expanse of life that you don't have to come back and review every 15, every 20 years, and might not be approved for it, or might have to have some type of long expense, higher expense with it at a later date. So it says this, it's well documented fiscally, African Americans are one of the most conservative racial groups and among the least likely to invest in the stock market. He's talking about this as an action to be taken because the majority of us, according to his research, are not investing in the stock market. So he's saying, look, let this be your stock market. Let this be your replacement. So you're not investing in the stock market like everybody else. Fine, maybe that doesn't tickle your fancy. You don't have to do that. But there is this alternative where you can invest $35 a month, just like you might be doing with a stock that you're investing in, or just like the mutual fund that you might be getting into, $55 or $45 a month. You can take that money, and as opposed to being in the stock market, like he says, that fluctuates, you can get into something that does not fluctuate and that has a guaranteed number that you can focus on and say, this $55 a month is going to net my family $500,000 when I pass, and I can count on that $500,000 to be there for my family, as opposed to them having to cash in a whole bunch of stocks, and who knows, maybe it does add up to $600,000, or maybe it only adds up to $150,000. And I can say, man, I invested all of this money, but because of this fluctuation, my family only has $150,000, where I could have invested the same amount of money and guaranteed that my family would receive this amount of money. So he said, look, nothing against the stock market. We should be in the stock market. I am. and I think that you should be too. Not that that has anything to do with salvation, people. It don't. So it ain't a sin not to be in the stock market. Come on now, let's how sometimes we make statements and be like, really? Come on now, that's not true. But on the end, he's saying, look, you do need to be thinking about this. And if you're not in the stock market, this is an alternative that you can do that can fast forward some things and guarantee that your family has a certain amount of profit at the end of the duration of your life. So he says, look, this is another statement that I thought, well, let me ask you this. First of all, how many of you are invested in the stock market? How many of you have some type of stocks, or you're mutual funds, or maybe you're investing in bonds or building bonds, or how many of you have those, some type of CD, some type of certificate? How many of you have actually invested into some type of stock or bond or mutual fund? And is that something that you're heavily committed to? And is it giving you the type of return that you would like to get? And also keep in mind what he's also saying is, uh, you know, if you cannot get life insurance because of your health concerns, then yeah, the stock market is there, but this life insurance thing is still there, looming in the background that you could still get a nice amount and guarantee your family some type of return, despite health conditions or despite how late in the game you actually start this process. All right. So he says this. Here's another statement that underline rather. Of equal concern to me is what happens when individuals outlive their term insurance, or when the increasing annual premiums make the cost of the product unmanageable, or the health changes and they become uninsurable when it is time to renew their term insurance. So one of the things that he's talking about is the change in the market. When you get that whole life policy, wham, it's a flat rate. It doesn't fluctuate. You don't have to renew, so you don't have to come back and the fear that the market has changed and now the policy that you were able to afford at $35 is now $75. He's saying, look, that's one of the benefits of the whole life policy is that that policy remains the same the entire time. So you don't want to put yourself in a position where the market could change on you and then you not be able to afford the policy that you've had for the last 20 years that has given your family some type of security, right? And so you want to look into that and consider that when you are at looking at making a decision between buying a term life insurance policy and a whole life insurance policy. Now let's get into this last thing that he says is the third factor that is holding us back and being a stumbling block in us accumulating and closing this wealth gap, and that is the enemy within. And this is one that, man, I wish we were having a live discussion right now, and, um, and we're able to talk amongst each other about this. Because when I read this part, I was like, man, this is so true. Because I remember this was about 4 or 5 years ago. We had a gentleman that came to our church and was actually encouraging us to buy life insurance policies, and he suggested this is what he suggested. It was very interesting. He was giving us some statistics about the Asian community, and I don't know this to be true, but this is what he said. Is he said some of the families in the Asian community, they take the matriarch or the patriarch, and the siblings take out the most expensive policy that they can buy. Let's say it's $1 million, and you have four siblings. So the four siblings will split the policy in four ways. So everyone will, let's say the policy is $200. So everybody takes their $50, puts $50 in every month, and they pay that every month until that loved one passes. And then, of course, when that loved one passes, they have that money to split four ways between each of them, right? And so he was talking about how uh, he was asking us how much debt we average, and as far as in what our homes and student loans and stuff like that. And most people were saying, look, if my loved one died and I was left $300,000 or $500,000, then literally I would have all of my debts paid. I would literally be at a zero. So what he was explaining, he was like, look, once you get up and your loved one is 80 and you're in your 60s, if you had a cash influx of $250,000, then you could literally reset yourself to zero debt in most cases if you've been diligent and responsible with staying, not skipping from house to house every 2 to 3 years, or buying a new $100,000 car every 4 years because you got the itch, or doing all this just kind of random stuff and being a good steward over your money. He said, look, if you were able to do that, then you could reset your whole family. And so he was talking about how they look at that as a reset. Now, the reset allows you to do a lot of things. If you know at some point you're going to get $250,000 from the passing of a loved one, and it's not that you're rooting on that loved one to pass, because that's what he's going to talk about. But if you were guaranteed that that was going to happen, how much more aggressive would you be in investing? I mean, just think about it. Or how much more aggressive would you be in taking out the loan to start that business? If you understood that you had some type of covering, some type of finances coming in the next 10 to 15 years, how much more diligent would you be with staying in the house that you're in? And so you're talking about how that safety net or that guaranteed influx of cash allows you to be a little bit more aggressive as opposed to being conservative. You don't have to be as fearful about taking risk because you understand that there is something that is a backdrop there just in case the business failed and now you got this loan and you're trying to clean up your credit, and you're hemorrhaging, you're trying to put it together. Well then, let's say Big Mama lives another 10 to 15 years, then hey, look, at the end of this time, we're going to get this influx of cash in, and then we can kind of restabilize ourselves and to reposition ourselves, or we end up losing the money that we had that was going to send our kids to school. Not that you should ever do that, but I've got this influx of money that's going to come in eventually, and that can help us kind of revive ourselves again. And so he was talking about how that allows them to be a lot more aggressive and a lot more comfortable in the message. Not that they're reckless, because you don't want to ever be reckless, but in your decision making, you don't have to be as fearful because you know that there is something that's there that is going to help you just in case you get in that tight. And so he talked about how the elder statesmen or the matriarchs and the patriarchs of the family love this because, first of all, some of them don't have the money to pay for the policy, but because those kids have the money to pay for the policy, it's a way that they can allow them to invest and to benefit even furthermore than they're able to give them. You understand? And so he said, look, if we were to do that in our families, then how much more would that change things? You know, how much more would you be able to do? And then, would you even be able to retire earlier? Some of us get to a point when we want to retire and want to spend that time with our family and wisdom and helping build things, but we cannot because we have to continue working till we're 70 or 75 because we have not been good stewards over our money. So he's saying, look, then that money that was coming in from that life insurance policy would then enable you to not have to do that so that you could shift your gears and to be a different and play a different role in your family. All right. So look, so he says, look, the enemy within are our thoughts, the way we feel about life insurance policies, and what we subliminally feel about this idea of someone dying, and then I have money because Big Mama died. And so the first thing he talked about is feeling guilty about profiting off of the death of a loved one. And this is not something that we should be thinking about. And I know because the money is always going to be associated that way. But your loved one, we have to understand, desires for you to prosper. They don't want to leave you struggling and stranded. They want you to be able to live out your dreams. And we have to understand that if Big Mama could have given you $500,000, she would have put it in your hand because she would want you to have those things to be able to go on and to do greater things than you've already accomplished. She wants you to write that book. She wants you to open up that store. She wants you to pay off that house. She wants you to protect the family land that she's leaving to you. She wants you to be in a position to send off your kids to the schools that they desire and to get them the training that they need to be their very best. She wants those things. So you don't have to feel guilty about that because you're not profiting. You are sustaining and extending Big Mama's legacy through her grandchildren and through your own hands. Um, and then the other thing is justifying not leaving an inheritance for others, courtesy of that bootstrap mentality. Some of us are thinking like that. It's like, you know what? Let them, let them figure it out for themselves. I don't owe them anything after I'm gone. I pulled myself up by my own bootstraps. I made it by myself. I suffered in this life by myself, and I struggled, and they deserve to do the same thing because I had to do it. And he said, no, 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 no. Don't do that. That is terrible. That is foolish. That is not what you want to do to your family. You want to position your family so that they can do greater things. They can do bigger things. They don't have to struggle and to suffer like you did. They can extend your legacy. Right? Why would you want them to have to suffer like that? And he's saying, look, don't do that. Believing that family members will waste the inheritance. Yes, it is true. A fool and his money will soon part. But come on now. Out of all of the siblings, out of all of the children that you have, everybody's not going to be wasteful. It might be somebody that's wasteful, but you can't think like that. You have to do your best to train and to teach and to prepare them for your passing. And part of that is not just leaving them some money, but it's also teaching them before you go what to do with that money. And part of that teaching, brothers and sisters, is how you manage the money that you have and how you teach them based upon what you have, what to do with money. So if you're modeling good things for them, teaching them good things, preparing them, giving them the training, giving them the encouraging, giving them the nurturing that they need, allowing them to make mistakes and then helping them to correct those mistakes, then if you're doing those things, then you can be assured that at some level, that once beyond the grave, they will be able to manage somehow and to be somewhat responsible with the money that you are leaving to them or that they will get by investing in their policy upon your life. Assuming that one family member will be taken care of by the other relatives or the church. Oh Lord! Like, look, he says, look, that's not the safest bet. You don't want to leave your children or your grandchildren beyond the grave and to think, well, I'm assuming that Betsy's going to take care of them. Well, you don't know what Betsy's going to do. And Betsy may have a heart and a desire to take care of them, but you don't know what her financial position will be beyond beyond you being in the grave. So you can't always bet upon someone taking up the role that you had in their life, right? And you also can't put that responsibility on the church. The church may be able to help out with benevolence from time to time, but the church cannot gather the members every month and do some type of crowdfunding for you to help to cover the lack that you the void of resources that you have taken to the grave with you. So you have to do your best not to put it in someone else's hands or place the responsibility on someone else. You have to shoulder that responsibility by doing your best to give them as much as you can give them so that they can survive and so that they can thrive. And then some of us are still thinking rationalizing, man, I just need enough to bury myself. Like, look, I'm gonna take care of myself while I'm here. I'm gonna take care of them while I'm here. But after I'm gone, you figure it out. Use this money to give me a good send off, and that's all I'm concerned about. And he said, look, that is poor judgment. That's the wrong spirit to take. That's the wrong attitude to take. And we wanna fix that and do right by ourselves and by our families by not having that type of thinking. And then the last thing he says is, I'm young, so I don't need to worry about that yet. That is, of course, some very, very poor thinking because life is really a vapor and we really do not know what God has planned for us tomorrow. So, what we have to do is we have to be responsible with today. And being responsible with today means being able to anticipate or to be able to plan for tomorrow, understanding that we don't know what's guaranteed, but we have to make decisions that put our families in the best position possible to thrive, not just to survive. Come on now, some of us are thinking, I'm gonna just leave these jokers enough just to eat every day. No, 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 no. Let's leave our families in a position, if we can, do the best that we can leave them in a position where they're going to be sad. They will mourn our loss. They will cry those tears, and they should because we mean that much to them. But at the same token, we want them to experience some type of joy. We want them to know, yes, Daddy was thinking about us at such a level that he bought that additional life insurance policy. And he did the things that were necessary to position us to be able to stay in this house that has all of our memories in it. So he left us enough to pay off the remaining balance on the mortgage. He left Mama enough to pay off the student loans so that now she has a check coming in and she may not be making enough to cover the whole house, but because she doesn't have a mortgage, student loans, and she doesn't have any debt over her head, now all she has to do is pay utilities and pay taxes, and now she can stay in this house with a lot of headache and a lot of stress, and she doesn't have to take on a second job to try to keep the family housed. We need to do those things. We should leave such an inheritance for our children and our children's children that they should be taking the section of money and saying, man, like after all of the bills are paid, Dad left me a policy and now I got $20,000 on my hand. What do I want to do with this $20,000? What do I want to do with this $75,000? Do I want to start a business? Do I want to pay off my house? Do I want to pay off my loans? Do I want to go to school in Europe? What do I want to do with this money? Do I want to develop the invention that I dreamed of building? And I never had the money to do it. Now I have this money and I have my job. Maybe now I can invest in this invention that I have in mind. That could be something that changes the world. We should be thinking about putting our family in that position. And brothers and sisters, I'm hoping that you will. So again, that is another piece that we've taken from Closing the Racial Wealth Gap by Brother Eugene Mitchell. It's a great book. I've enjoyed reading it, and I hope that you enjoy being a part of these discussions. Now, I do want to hear from you. Look, my email address is pastorjohnny at firstmet.org. I'm sorry. I would love to hear from you. And then also, I'm on the social media, so hit your boy up, hashtag PastorJDO3. And you can also reach me on any of the social medias by just looking up Pastor JDO3. That is my screen name on most of them. Or if not, just by my own name, Johnny Ogletree the Third. So that's Johnny Ogletree 3 on at least Twitter and Facebook. Have Johnny Ogletree 3, and you can find me by using either one of those. And I would love to talk to you. And I look forward to having these discussions again. Hashtag First Met Church, hashtag My First Met, and you can check us out by you respond to this by using either one of these. And we love to hear from you. And if you're right now live with us, as this is streaming to Facebook, it's also streaming to Twitter, streaming to YouTube. If you're watching via that, please, I definitely want to hear back from you. So just write in the comments so that we can get back to you when we can. Hey, look here. Thank you for joining us for the Young Adult Bible Study. Thank you for hanging out with us, man. We have a lot of fun and it talk about a lot of great things that really need to be talked about in our community. And we look forward to having future dialogues with you. God bless you and thank you for joining us for today's